It happened on one of the coldest mornings of the year, an icy wind slicing through the streets like blades, making even the strongest flinch. Snow clung to the cracked sidewalks, and the breath of each passerby came out in sharp clouds. But for the girl standing at the corner of Lincoln High's courtyard, the cold wasn't just in the air. It was in the eyes of the students who surrounded her, laughing, mocking, and closing in. Her name was Eliza. A quiet scholarship student, an outsider to most, who had only transferred 2 months ago. She didn't wear designer boots or carry the latest phone. Her coat was second-hand, clean, warm, but old. And that, somehow, had made her a target. She was just about to push through the heavy front doors when it happened. One of the girls, wrapped in a pink faux fur coat, sneered, stepped forward, and yanked at Eliza's hood. Another joined in. Laughter echoed. Before Eliza could react, her coat had been stripped from her shoulders, leaving her in nothing but a thin sweater beneath the snow. Cameras came out. Phones clicked. No one stopped it. Not even the teachers on duty, who were too slow or too indifferent to notice. But Eliza didn't cry. She didn't beg. With frost clinging to her eyelashes, she looked up, shoulders shaking, not from fear, but from the burning surge of courage rising within her. She didn't run. She slammed them without hesitation. Speech balloon: if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength to stand up when no one else does, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these real, emotional stories alive. Eliza wasn't the kind of girl people expected to fight back. She had always been quiet, too polite, too invisible for the school's radar. But this moment shattered the silence that had once cocooned her. With the sharpness of instinct and pain long buried, she snatched her coat back from the leader's hands and threw it over her own shoulders. Not with shame, but pride. The act wasn't violent. It wasn't physical at all. It was the fierce way she stared through them, a storm in her eyes that made the crowd go silent. "Done," she whispered, and then walked into the school like a soldier returning from battle. The bullies never touched her again. But that was just the surface. Beneath her quiet strength was a story most would never know. Eliza had moved to the city with her aunt after her parents passed away in a car accident. Their small town had been kind to her, full of neighbors who knew her story and held her hand when the nights grew too long. But Lincoln High was a different world. Reputation ruled everything. She didn't fit in, didn't know the trends, didn't speak in their clipped slang or have money to burn. Her classmates never saw the girl who worked nights at a bookstore to afford her school lunches. They only saw the charity case. And though she tried her best to blend in, the loneliness wrapped around her tighter with every passing day. It wasn't just bullying, it was silence in hallways, empty lunch tables, group projects done without her. She spent her breaks in the library, hiding behind dusty shelves, scribbling in a notebook with shaking fingers, pouring her emotions into stories no one would ever read. The coat incident had been the final cut. But rather than bleed out, she rose. That same week, something began to shift. A video of the moment someone had posted on TikTok went viral, not because it mocked her, but because people saw the fire in her eyes. "That girl didn't flinch," someone wrote. "She's a lion." Within days, comments poured in, strangers defending her, others sharing their own stories of bullying and isolation. And then something even more unexpected happened. One of the popular girls, Mia, approached her quietly in the hallway, eyes lowered, coat sleeves fidgeting. She apologized. Genuinely. "I didn't know," she whispered. Eliza said nothing at first, but she didn't walk away. That was the beginning. Slowly, people began to see her, not as a charity case, but as a force. She joined the student newsletter, writing articles about resilience, kindness, and standing up. She started a winter drive for students in need, collecting coats and gloves with the help of that same girl who once tried to humiliate her. Her writing earned her an award from the state, and during her graduation speech just months later, Eliza stood tall in front of the very crowd that once shunned her, telling them that courage wasn't about being fearless, it was about facing fear and walking through it anyway. But it wasn't all smooth. There were still whispers, moments when doubt crept in, days when the grief of her past returned like an unwelcome guest. She still missed her parents. Still walked home alone sometimes with tears freezing on her cheeks. But those moments didn't define her anymore. What did was how she refused to let them stop her. Eliza learned to carry both her pain and her strength, side by side, like pages in a story, one she was still writing. Years later, she became a social worker, specializing in teen mental health and trauma recovery. She used her story, her fire, and her compassion to reach out to those who had felt like her, small, unseen, and hurting. She built a foundation called the Warmth Project, which provided winter clothing and emotional support for underprivileged students across the country. Every coat handed out came with a tag that read, "You are not alone. Be the storm they didn't see coming." And every year, on the same winter day, Eliza would take a walk by Lincoln High. Not to revisit pain, but to remember power. Hers. And every child's who ever thought their voice was too small to echo. Speech Balloon. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Someone out there may need this reminder today: you matter, and your pain can become your power. Pushpin special request. Before the video ends, please comment below, "I believe in standing up for others." Let's flood the comment section with hope.